Travolting presents The Fraser's Edge. Hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore. Covering George of the Jungle. With special guests, Anna Ragland and Adam Campbell. Oh my God.
Jeff, are you feeling all right?
Sorry I had to swing in here.
Yeah, you literally swung into the room, man, but you face planted into the tree.
I face planted into something.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're seeing a tree in here, but you know what they say. Jeff of the Jungle, watch out for that tree. Well, what? I don't know.
Hello, folks, and welcome to our George of the Jungle episode for Travolting the Fraser's Edge.
Yes. It's a big one, folks. We're jumping into the second era of our show. The A-list era.
The A-list era.
I think that's what we're calling. No, we're calling it mainstream success because Travolta already took the A-list era.
Right.
Calling it mainstream success.
We are leaving the early hits and misses era and entering the mainstream success era. With the cap-off film, George of the Jungle.
Yes. George of the Jungle to start off this new era with a bang, or should we say a thud as he crashed into that tree.
Yes.
And that's right, folks. We're joined by two guests this week.
Not one.
But two.
One returning, one brand new guest.
One returning guest, Adam Campbell, coming back from the Phenomenon and Gotti episodes, and also secretly Life on the Line.
Yeah, hi.
And a new guest, Anna Ragland, joining us to talk about this movie that means a lot to her.
New guest. She just pulled me off the street.
Yeah. We actually just found her out front.
Yeah.
We had this mic, and
I don't know anybody here.
We said, do you like George of the Jungle? And she started foaming at the mouth. We're like, all right, great. Let's get her in.
When we first decided we were going to do Fraser, Anna was the first guest booked.
Yes, you were.
Because we were like, I think we'll do Brendan Fraser. And you're like, George of the Jungle or bust. And I was like, all right.
Well, I don't know how quickly you got in that way. Was it like, were you the first one that like heard about us talking about the new chapter?
It might have been that. And then I think immediately was like, listen, there's a little movie. I don't think you've seen it. It's called George of the Jungle. I need to be part of it.
Because we were finishing Travolting at the time.
Yes.
But we were like our last few episodes and we were making the roster and everything. And like we were telling a few folks, and a few folks were like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. But you were like the one that's like, oh, that's cool. George of the Jungle. Like, book me.
I think it was like me, and you had already told me like Becca had booked something.
Yeah, Becca had The Mummy.
Yeah, which is a hot ticket.
Yes.
I get it, but not as hot as George of the Jungle.
He's a good-looking guy, let me tell you.
Adam, what about your connection to George of the Jungle?
Well, when Jeff told me about The Fraser's Edge, the first thing I said was George of the Jungle, and you said it's booked. And I said, oh, well, I guess I'll do something else. And you listed a bunch of things I'd never seen, but I agreed to see them eventually. But then here I am for George of the Jungle. I don't know when you decided that.
Well, we were talking, and you said, well, I'll watch some of these movies. I'm like, oh, well, why'd you want to do George? And I think you said, it's one of my favorite movies ever, and it means a lot to me. And I was like, all right, I got to know what that means. And we've done some 2 guest episodes before, and they always turn out pretty well.
Yeah.
So we're like, we'll just do 2.
Yeah.
Bring them both in.
Well, the film does mean a lot to me. I had it on VHS and watched it all the time. At my friend's house, at my parents' house. I would just bring it with me. And
Everywhere you went?
yeah, and the theme song, it's one of my favorites. Stuck in my head to this day.
Are we talking about the George of the Jungle, watch out for that tree? Or are we talking about De La... fuck.
It's that one for me.
It's the former for me.
Oh my gosh.
There was a brief moment in time where I considered making this a 3-guest episode.
What?
Mark Tilley almost used the De La song at his wedding as the first dance. But I was like, we cannot fit a fifth person at this table.
No, we cannot.
We'll stick with the 2.
Yeah. But we're very glad to have you both. Very interesting takes, I hope. I think, Anna, I guess to start out, because we got some pretext we'll lay down.
Yeah.
But just to get started Adam, you described how this movie was impactful for you, especially early childhood. Anna, tell us about your history with this movie and how it came to the moment you heard the name of it, you booked it for a podcast session.
Right. The year was 1997. Anna was 6 years old, just super naive. And there that movie was, on my screen. And then he came on. It's different than I think the three of you. It was like, what is this feeling?
What is this feeling?
Who is this man? What is a man? Yeah, that was the reaction for me. I mean, now as an adult, you watch it and it's like, there's so much nuance and like humor to it. But as a kid, it was all, hitting the tree hard, funny, poop jokes, funny, George oiled up. Not funny, but something.
He's doing something.
This was also like a childhood movie for me that I think we owned on VHS. And I think the last time I had seen this movie, I watched it last night. Beforehand, it was probably when I was like maybe 10 years old, I'm guessing. But yeah, like just kind of a nostalgia piece, but definitely been well over, good Lord, almost like close to 20 years since I've seen this movie. And you all know how old I am. I'm very, very little when I saw this movie. So
this movie came out 6 days after I was born. Fun fact.
Wow.
Jeff, do you have any special connection to this movie?
No, I'd actually never seen this movie before.
Wow. Okay, so we're getting a first.
This is the first time I've seen George of the Jungle.
Okay.
I thought it would be fun to hold on to that information for the past several months of this podcast.
I don't know, because now I'm speechless.
We're getting very interesting takes here now.
Yes.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Do you have any pretext research for this movie?
Yes, I do. But before we get into that, I just want to say, like, the common thread, even though I've never seen this movie, I did own it on VHS. My older sister did.
Okay.
And so I think it's really interesting how this particular movie it really fits into that very specific, like, everyone had this on VHS section. Because, like, it's before streaming. It's before DVDs, which were, like, a cheaper and more, like, easily collectible format. Like, VHS families usually had, like, a decent selection of VHSs, but they didn't have, like, shelves and shelves like people had of DVDs, usually.
Yeah.
Like, an entire closet worth.
Yeah.
And so this was one of those movies that had an incredibly successful home video run on VHS. And I just feel like everybody who was a child between like 92 and 2000 wound up with this movie on their shelf on VHS. And so I think it's interesting how that like cultural relevance has really just like skyrocketed recently, just based on like the VHS longevity of that.
The VHS longevity of that and the VHS generation now seeing a resurgence of Brendan Fraser and looking back.
Well, because like I don't think Brendan Fraser's current resurgence happens if George of the Jungle doesn't come out on VHS.
Yeah.
If George of the Jungle doesn't come out on VHS, there's so like he gets The Mummy off of this movie.
Yeah.
Does he get The Mummy off of this movie if like this isn't a big success or this doesn't happen? Probably not. If he doesn't have The Mummy, we're hosting like the Cruise Control or something right now. We're not doing the Fraser's Edge.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting how just like the popularity of the VHS of this in some way you can track to Brendan Fraser's resurgence. Because everyone has fond memories of him from their childhood.
Yeah. Now, a quick question to Anna and Adam. Had either of you seen Encino Man?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I mean, I saw it after George of the Jungle,
Same.
Because
Same here.
it wasn't obviously marketed to kids, and I was 6 at the time. But yeah that was his first big hit.
And a very clear, like from a producer writer standpoint, a very clear predecessor to this movie. Like, you can easily watch Encino Man. It doesn't take a lot to imagine, oh yeah, we should hire the caveman from Encino Man to play the Jungle Man in this movie. Like, and the dude was shirtless and wore a loincloth throughout that entire movie in Encino Man. Dude's gonna be cool doing it in this movie.
Yeah.
So like it makes perfect sense. But I was in the same boat that I also watched Encino Man after George of the Jungle. And I mean, obviously very different characters, but it is interesting to see like how it evolved. Because Fraser does a few things with this role outside. I mean, because Encino Man, he's like just starting to be an actor. He like what was like prior to Encino Man? Like he had just done With Honors
You said right after Encino Man?
or School Ties.
Yeah, School Ties.
I'm talking about the build up to Encino Man. It was like School Ties and then like a TV movie in a supporting role. Like just that's about it. And Encino Man, he doesn't have any lines except maybe like a grunt. And then fast forward to a few movies, cameos, supporting roles later. Now we're getting him in George of the Jungle. And it's a jungle man, but it's a jungle man who talks, who has a personality,
Yes.
who has an amazing physique.
What?
So, like, it's very fascinating for me to compare and contrast the two and be like, it's a very clearly evolved Brendan Fraser at this point.
Yes. In more ways than one is he evolved.
In more ways than one.
See, I don't think he gets this movie without the combination of Encino Man and Airheads.
Yes.
Yes.
Because
1,000%.
I think you get the comedy in the second one, right?
Yeah.
And then you have producers who are probably like, these two things,
Yeah.
this is perfect.
Yeah.
Caveman comedy.
Yeah. Airheads, heavy rocker, can stand up with a good cast.
Yeah, and we've talked about Fraser like at this point in his career as he's in like conflict with the sense that he wants to be a serious actor, but his like greatest skill as an actor is he has very good comedic chops.
Yeah.
He's good at taking himself not seriously.
Yeah.
Making fun of himself, making fun of his physique, making fun of whatever it is.
Right.
And so the fact that he's trying to do, these movies like School Ties and With Honors and
All the dramatic
The
roles.
Passion of Darkly Noon.
The thespian roles, as we might call them.
But still young roles. Like,
Yeah.
they're dramatic, but it's very like teen drama.
like you're the Twilight of the Goldses.
In Passion of Darkly Noon, I think what's interesting is it's not that many degrees off of like a caveman grunting like comedy, because the role he plays is like a knockoff of like Frankenstein's monster.
Yes.
In a sense that he's not very well educated. He kind of has like a stocky build and is sort of clumsy with himself.
Yeah.
But the wildly different tone, of course, but not that many degrees off of the same performance.
Yeah.
Which is not a testament about his lack of acting skills. It's a testament to how good he can act, because he's not changing a lot to deliver what's needed. And that's another example of why I think Fraser's good in this movie, George of the Jungle. I do think he's really good in this movie, by the way. Like, some people are going to say like, oh, the movie wasn't that good or whatever, but it has like a nostalgia charm. No. I think Fraser's good in this movie.
Yes.
I think he actually like knows what movie he's filming. And
No, he very much knows. And he gets this movie based off of exactly what Anna was saying. Like, Encino Man, he plays essentially a caveman, much like he does in this.
Yeah.
And he was kind of resisting like going back to that well. He did his cameos as Link in The Army Now and Son-in-Law.
But then he bathes in the river of ham in this.
Yeah,
one.
but for this, he's like, Disney comes knocking. And they're like, hey,
you're going in. You're lubing
you
up.
want to be a caveman again?
We'll pay you a lot of money.
And he's just come off of, your Mrs. Winterbournes and your Twilight of the Goldses, which didn't do anything for him.
He's not on a decline, but we described this
He's
in the
stagnant.
He's stagnant. He's in a plateau right now.
And so he gets offered, probably a pretty good paycheck to do a very high-budget Disney comedy, going back to his roots as a caveman, and he just says, sure.
Not just sure. He's like, all right. And he like goes full out in this movie.
Yes.
In more ways than one. I mean, he just the physical transformation he went through to do this movie, which is going to be a theme in Fraser's career going forward, which is another thing I think you two can probably weigh in on, is when we talk about Fraser and all of his roles he's done, particularly in his heyday, a lot of it is like action physique. He's doing a lot of his own stunts. And especially I think where Fraser left off with Hollywood for a while and is coming back, we're hearing more and more depictions from himself about how that wasn't necessarily the best for him. So like he talks about, I think the most clear-cut example I have is he talks about The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor a lot, about how he was 40, but he was still expected to be like Ricochet O'Connell. And so he's like pretty much like held together by duct tape, Band-Aids, and ice packs. And so thinking about that and his dedication, like, did it serve him well in the long run, I guess, is my question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the like timeline of his career and where it would have gone if he had just sort of, not spoken up about things he experienced, it would be totally different, but would he be happy? No, absolutely not. Like, I think we would see the decline of like his mental health if he had just kind of stayed with it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he recently talked about why he didn't want to do a second one of George of the Jungle.
Yeah.
And it was because he was like, I physically was barely eating, expected, try to keep so thin. And he was like, I was unhappy.
Yeah, and work like a 12-hour day.
Yeah. And then like eat a cashew,
And he also said that Disney didn't give him a high enough offer for the second one to even consider that.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about George of the Jungle 2 when we get to the end of this episode.
Right. Yeah.
But for now, we will ignore that movie.
Yeah. But
it does exist.
As we should.
Yeah. But all that to be said, I always, as I'm watching these movies, it's always a thing I'm keeping in the back of my head that, oh my God, like George of the Jungle, it's so amazing. Mummy, it's so amazing. Mummy 2, all that stuff, it's amazing. But it's also in the back of my head of like, Fraser is like, I relate to him in the sense that he comes from a small Midwest, like local part of the country, moved to California. We talk about this a lot on the podcast when we compare Travolta and Fraser. Travolta, who's a New York Broadway kid, mother was like a producer of some fashion, came up in like the song and dance style and just sort of hit it right away. Whereas Fraser, and you can see in his filmography, had to work really hard to get all the roles that he could get. And with that Midwest attitude, I can see it being like, okay, Mr. Fraser, you're going to do this stunt for this shot. And where some actors, I think Michael Caine talks about this in one of his like lectures from the 90s, where about having that veteran actor apprehension about doing things that
I didn't think I'd be doing that. I say bring my stunt double in and have them do it for me.
Right.
I'm going to go sit in the trailer.
Right. And it's
up to you whether he said shit in the trailer or sit in the trailer. That is for you, the audience.
But like, a lot of us work in the film industry, and I've talked to a lot of stunt people, and it is absolutely a myth about this whole like pride and joy that you hear in stories about actors being like, oh yeah, he didn't use a stunt double for this. He did it all by himself, and always he's so cool. It's like, no, one, because if something happens and they break a leg, that production loses so much money in the delays of that. But secondly, it's terrible for their like career in the future. And I could
unless you're Tom Cruise,
right? Unless you're
the one exception.
The one exception. And so my big tangent that I'm just going on with this is that I can see Fraser being a little too eager to just say yes to all these things, because he talks about horror stories that he had to endure in The Mummy, like he almost got like hanged for real accidentally.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some horror stories in this movie that he had to go through. But all this to be said, like Fraser is in the point of his career where he's just going to go balls deep, balls to the wall with everything, because he's like hitting like a spark, and he knows it with this movie.
Yes.
All
I agree.
right. And thank you for coming to the Consulting Podcast. All right.
So this movie, George of the Jungle, directed by Sam Wiseman. His other hits have been D2, The Mighty Ducks. And then Dickie Roberts, former child star. A movie we'll actually be covering on this show in a few months.
No shit.
But that is the last movie he's ever directed. I don't know what happened to him.
Because he's mostly a TV director, I think.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah.
That's usually the path.
But the whole idea of this movie is based on an old cartoon, 1967 cartoon, George of the Jungle. Yes, of course. George of the Jungle.
Right. Which is in the rights of Disney. Disney
Yes.
owns the copyright to the 1960s, so it's reusing a lot of the same themes and all that stuff.
So it's based on that cartoon. It was the 90s, early 2000s when like kids who grew up in the 60s with these cartoons were coming of age where they had executive powers now. Not like presidential executive power, but like power at studios.
Yeah.
Because if you were 7 in 1967, you'd be, 37 when this movie comes out. So it's the executives who grew up with those cartoons are like, you know what? I think it's time to bring George back. I think it's time to bring the Looney Tunes back, which at the same time we're having Space Jam and Looney Tunes Back in Action, another movie we'll be covering on this show. They're talking about let's bring Dudley Do-Right back, another movie we'll be covering on this show. If you're seeing a recurring thread, I'm trying to draw one.
Yeah.
And that thread I'm trying to draw is that Brendan Fraser is very good at playing cartoon characters.
Yes.
That is one of his great skills as an actor. But the this movie, gets made. Disney decides they're going to go ahead with it. They're looking around. They hire Fraser. They hire Wiseman. And they put a decent amount of money into this movie.
What was the budget?
At a $55 million budget.
Okay.
For 1997, that is pretty substantial
That's a lot.
for a movie like this.
It's not mid-size, really, either.
Yeah, this would be higher end at the time.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Especially, I love this movie, but when I watch it, I'm not like 55 million. I see it.
I don't see it either, yeah.
Do you want to know where most of that money probably went? So I at the beginning of this movie was like, wow, they filmed a lot of this on location. This is pretty cool. They did not. It is a 750-foot long soundstage
Where?
in Los Angeles,
No shit.
all made to look like a jungle.
But surely they had some, like, B unit.
Well, I'm sure they had a
second
B unit that went out. There's
that
like
went-
a few shots of like a
There's some, like,
helicopter.
clearly look like Hawaii.
Yeah. But anytime they're in the actual jungle,
Right.
like near the treehouse, like walking through the jungle, that is a 750-foot long stage, entirely made to look like a jungle.
Wow. Fuck off, Mandalorian volume.
Off the volume. It was 71 feet high at the peak and 90 feet wide.
Jesus Christ. Built for this movie?
Built for, well, the stage was already there.
Right.
It's just like one of the big sound stages in Hollywood that they probably filmed like Armageddon and shit.
And maybe more of a testament to be like, they filled a 750-foot stage with jungle
Yeah, with the
trees.
jungle.
With the jungle.
It's very impressive.
Good Lord.
So George of the stage.
Right.
George of the stage. Watch out for that bell. Money was spared no expense on this movie. It had some actually like Shep the elephant was a major CGI advancement. Adam knows this.
Yeah, I was just amazed at the amount of CGI in this 1997 movie.
Yes.
That didn't look absolutely horrendous.
No, it was not absolutely horrendous.
It had that Jurassic Park thing where the textures actually kind of looked pretty good.
Yeah.
The movements were a little goofy, but like the actual texture design of the creature looked okay.
My favorite, like, goofy effects moment was the lion fight. Because here's the thing. It's not really a lot of CGI. It's, like, isolated shots of a real fucking lion and then isolated shot of Leslie Mann. And then George comes in and then cut to a tight close-up of a puppet paw, like, swiping his face.
He like knocks it over. I'm like, is that a stuffed animal?
Yeah, basically. Like when he's like lifting up the lion, it's totally like just a fake stuffed animal lion.
Yeah, so they used fake animals, but in real life they used, like I said, CGI advancements. They used a lot of real animals in this movie. They used 3 real lions named Bongo, Joseph, and Caleb. I just wanted to highlight those 3 lions because they're good guys.
I must ask the question about
Yeah.
the animal treatment in this movie.
All the gorillas were fake.
Well, right.
They were all created by
What?
they were all created by Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
But I have to ask about the lions and the elephant because
What about the tigers and the bears? Oh my.
thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
I don't know. 1997. Every time I see like an older movie, like I say older, 90s, that use animals, and I'm just like, oh, like culturally wise, I don't know if we were quite like caught up to speed about like maybe you can't put an animal in a cage like 24 hours a day and then rush it onto a stage and use it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's Disney, so of course they wouldn't do anything wrong with animals.
Yeah, never. Never.
They're perfect in every way.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Thank you. This episode actually sponsored by the Walt Disney Corporation. Make sure to see Avatar: The Way of Water premiering in movie theaters 3 weeks ago.
No.
That's all I have in terms of like pretext.
Yeah.
Just the Fraser of it all, the Wiseman of it all, and then the budget that did go into this thing. Disney was like putting effort into this.
Yeah.
This wasn't a toss-off movie for them because there's a lot of toss-off movies.
It wasn't Old Dogs.
It wasn't Blank Check.
How much did it make though?
A lot of money. This is Fraser's first box office like major box office success.
Yeah, I didn't do research on it because I figured you would.
Yeah.
But like, I think in my brain assumed that this came out after Tarzan. And it didn't. So
It
I
came
think
out before.
I was like, it had to have been a success because Disney loves to be like, that worked.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
But get Phil Collins involved.
Instead of
Oscar-winning Phil
come
Collins
on, dance
soundtrack.
with me.
Yeah.
Do-do-do-do-do.
Are we hitting?
I
Are we
know where
hitting
the
the?
duck cows at the moon?
Are we hitting?
Hey-oh, de-la,
This happens a lot.
come and dance with me.
The problem is you're
Come
like
and dance with me.
the rhythm is so wrong.
Yeah, I cannot remember the rhythm.
Do we just want to hop into the plot now?
Yeah, let's hop into the movie. All right. So I want to turn to Adam for this opening.
Well, I had completely forgotten that it opens with like a cartoon. And I don't know, I was like struck with, I remember every single detail of this, but did not remember that it even existed. And it immediately made me like the movie less, even though I really appreciate animation normally. I just was like, oh God, I don't feel like watching this now.
Was it not? Was it not good animation? Or
It was decent animation. I mean, it's fine animation. I just was like, I remember this movie being like relatively highbrow as a 7-year-old watching it. And then I'm seeing, I don't know, this jungle baby, and I'm just like, maybe my memory is not that accurate.
Well, I don't think they could find a baby hot enough to be a young Fraser, if you will. That's what I told myself.
What if there's just a really ripped baby and it's just like walking around the woods, just like 8-pack and shit?
They also probably were trying to lessen the plot there that like a plane crashed and they lost a baby. They were like, well, he's fine. He's of the jungle now. It's all good.
No, I kind of like that it pays homage to the cartoon origins of George of the Jungle. It's like, oh, it's a cartoon, and then we're going to bring it into live action. I also like 90s animation styles.
oh my god,
Like the style of this, it's like in the same vein as like early Rugrats and Simpsons.
I kept
and
like singing the Nickelodeon theme song in my head watching
like
this opening cartoon.
I don't even know, like it's that very specific 90s cartoon look to it.
Yeah,
and I
It's
don't
like
know
almost
what,
a drawing.
it's like when like it kind of like it has like a sketch quality to it. When they're like still hand drawing and using cell animation, but computers were starting to come in. I don't know. It's a weird intersection of animation that I always loved the style of.
immediately Keith Scott narration voiceover.
Yes.
Who? Oh my god. I feel like we got to take a segue just to talk about the narrator of this, Keith Scott, who
MVP of the movie if it wasn't for Fraser.
Oh my god. This is a children's tale, so no one dies in the story.
This is a movie that does not work if you don't have Fraser and his complete, mastery of understanding what movie he's in and who he's playing. And if you don't have that narrator, it also doesn't work. You need those two elements.
Very few movies where you can say that.
Yes.
Where like the narrator really like builds
The
this
narrator's a
movie up.
character in this movie.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
I mean, they break the fourth wall like
Yeah.
multiple times with him too.
Yeah.
So like he is 100% of the world.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because this thing, it's operating like very over the top at a heightened level. So you need that narrator to give order to that and also be able to break the rules when you need to. Like, I don't want to hear Leslie Mann tell her parents, like, why she left her husband. So you can be like, we'll fast forward through this. And get this movie in and out of crisp 93 minutes.
Yeah. And I think when we transition to live action, we get pieces of George Fraser, but not a full reveal yet. George of the jungle, watch out for that tree.
We get the same shot of the gorillas playing the bongos that we get like
Watch out
7
for that
times in the
tree.
movie.
The way that opens with the bongos, it's just like it slaps you in the face. It's it's like, okay, it's a movie now, so you in?
It really does, because like it was the John Cleese talking ape for me. That just comes out.
John Cleese.
Yeah.
John Cleese is more like
say good boy, Johnny good sir.
John
You are too
Cleese is more like
woman.
John please and thank you, Daddy.
The best part about
I don't
his
know what else I can
character
do
is
for
that it's this very intelligent ape, right? Like,
Yeah.
probably more intelligent than at least me at this table. And in his entire lifetime, it's just like, no, I'm good with ape. A name? No.
That's his
Ape.
name. Ape.
Ape.
But what do you call the other ones? What do you call the other apes?
They're all just ape primate.
Just ape. Ape primate.
Ape 1, ape 2. Like, what?
Last name primate. It's the other thing too, because George introduced him as George primate.
Yeah.
You know what I do like in this movie? This movie never explains how George knows how to speak English.
No, I same.
I would assume it's ape.
Yeah.
But we don't need
But
to know.
like,
But
how did Ape learn to speak English?
I think that's the bigger mystery.
I think there's an origin story there. Like, It's a sci-fi movie.
I think Ape.
Is it Planet of the Apes?
I think Ape is Caesar, but in an alternate world where instead of like rallying all the apes to fight humanity,
Like human.
he just like went off, found a lost baby in the jungle. It was like, I'm going to take care of you now, and that was it.
I mean, again, they took that, and when they made Tarzan, they were like, we're going to do this again.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we're going to make it
Rosie O'Donnell.
slightly less weird. No, Rosie O'Donnell is
Kirk.
is his like
Okay.
BFF.
Oh, we're talking about the Glenn Close mom.
Is it Glenn Close?
Yes.
Of course it is.
But they don't even do like a what is it, like a not Hunt for Red October, where it's like, you know, you hear the apes speak and then it cuts to the humans POV and it's like, whoa, and then it cuts back to the apes speaking.
Yeah.
No, it fully talks in the universe, and it becomes a subplot where they try to get the ape to Vegas.
They don't try to get him to Vegas.
succeeds.
He gets
He
them.
gets there on his own.
He
Okay,
gets
he's
on
worked
his
hard.
own
He
volition.
did it his way.
What if Rosie O'Donnell had voiced this ape too?
Oh my god.
I mean, we've already covered like 3 Rosies on this show.
Rosie O'Donnell and Brendan Fraser. I mean,
Kind of had a stranglehold in the 90s. They were in a lot of things together, we've learned.
I really like it, but
I
I
mean,
mean,
just-
it's John. It's John.
Just like imagine like this ape walks out and
oh, how's it
Fraser's-
going, you
and
fucking
she's like,
cocksucker? Let's go.
she's like, hey, what do you want? It's me. Yeah, it's me. It's
Yeah, it's
Rosie.
me,
I'm playing
Rosie
an ape.
O'Donnell.
I'm playing an ape. What do you
Playing
want?
a
I'm
little
playing a
ape.
monkey. I'll make a monkey out of
Oh,
you.
you're
What do
trying
you
to
want?
warn
You
a
know?
woman? Okay, I'll take you out of one woman.
You ever had a hoagie? Hoagie's from Philly. It's crazy, you know?
She just uses the bongos to be like, but
That was my Rosie bit for this episode.
do you have one every episode?
We increasingly, yes.
Because we get so much Rosie.
There's so much Rosie on this show, and she's never warranted in the movies.
No.
It's always like Rosie O'Donnell pops up for a scene. She comes in, she's like, "Hey, what do you want? You know, I'm in this movie. It's about gay people. You know, the fine gay people are okay. All right, I'm gonna go home." And that's your scene.
Twilight of the Golds, by the way. If you want to watch that movie, listen to our episode, which I would not recommend.
It's like she actually shows up, tries to say her lines as quickly as possible so she can go home, and then never reappears in the movie.
That's smart.
Get paid.
So yeah, we get like little hints of George. We don't get a full reveal, which I like that they did that for the reveal.
Yes.
And then we cut very quickly to Leslie Mann
Yes.
playing Ursula. Don't know her last name.
Stone something.
It's some very proper English name.
Well, Ursula
Sto-
sounds, I don't know, Germanic, like something out of a Wagner opera
Yeah,
or an octopus from another Disney film.
I don't know what you're talking.
I don't know what that is, Adam, at
No.
all.
Sorry.
And she's on an African safari. Doesn't
Sure.
say what country they're in, does it?
Africa. It does.
Well, what
It says in the
like,
heart of Africa.
Bakuba, I think it is.
is that what, like the actual like country or
It is Uganda.
Uganda?
It is a part of Uganda that I cannot remember the name of.
Okay. And she's with her fiance. Oh my God, the winner of it all, Lyle.
Lyle.
Who just like showed up,
Oh my God,
not invited.
Lyle Van de Groot.
Lyle Van de Groot.
He
It's always
is
a
Groot.
Vander, right? Like
Yes. Played by Thomas Hayden Church, which, if the name is not familiar to you, I bring your attention to the 2007 Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 where he plays the Sandman.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Stuart immediately skips over his Academy Award nominated role in 2004 in Sideways, goes right to Sandman.
I don't know what you're talking about.
A role
He's
he hilariously reprised in Spider-Man No Way Home.
He does
he
it though.
did.
No, he's in it.
Is it? No, they.
He does the voice, but he does the voice.
but he doesn't come back in because they.
It's a CGI sand guy.
It's a CGI sand guy, and when they spoiler if you haven't seen No Way Home yet, when they cure him and he changes back to Flint Marko, they reuse a clip from
Spider-Man
Spider-Man 3. So he never appears in person in the movie.
I think the hardest I laughed at a movie in the past year was Spider-Man No Way Home when he's like fighting he's fighting Electro and like this wall of sand just appears and Thomas Hayden just face pops out of it, looks at Tom Holland and goes, "It's me, Flint Marko. Do you remember me?" It's like, what the fuck is this?
And Tom Holland is like, no.
And Tom Holland says no, and the entire audience is like, "Who's this guy?" I don't remember him.
And then it turns out that they completely destroyed his redemption arc and made him into a villain again.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, he does play the Sandman, but he is the villain in this movie as well.
And he is.
He's a big time villain because in my notes I wrote, is he a colonizer?
He is.
Yes.
He does definitely try to he's like, I give you this cigarette, the cigar, you give me your land. Like, that's a line.
Yeah.
I was like,
Full blown.
Lyle.
Tell me this movie is a highbrow.
You're right. We'll see. I was misled by the opening.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yes.
And they're trying to get to Ape Mountain, which if you think it's just a mountain with apes on it, you are mistaken. It is a mountain
In the shape of it.
in the shape of an ape's face. Fucking love that bit. That's a good bit. I wrote down this movie moves wickedly fast.
Yes.
Because it is popping plot points out left and right.
It moves fast and yet very slow because I feel like when you get to the moment later on where he goes to New York, you're like, oh, I still have so much movie left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's so much happening, but it's what you said, 93 minutes.
93 minutes.
It feels like a full 120 minutes.
It's 45 minutes before he leaves the jungle. Before he becomes George of the San Francisco.
Yeah.
Or George of the Bay Bridge.
Yeah.
Are they in San Francisco?
Yes.
Yeah. Because
I
the
never
Golden
knew
Gate
that
Bridge.
when I was younger.
It's the Golden Gate Bridge that they do the whole thing.
No,
That's
it's the
the
Bay
Bay
Bridge.
Bridge.
Because the
That
Golden Gate Bridge is
makes
expensive
sense.
to film on.
That makes sense because I was like, this isn't like
55 million.
the red Golden Gate Bridge. It's like a silver bridge. I'm like, what is this shit?
The Bay Bridge is a lot longer. I just learned
No
a couple
shit.
weeks ago.
Wow.
Did you just learn this because
Wow.
of George of the Jungle?
No, I drove across it.
Ah, that's fair.
Yeah,
Do you live in California, Adam?
I do live in California now.
Wow.
Much
Wow.
to my chagrin and the chagrin of many others.
Loves it in California, don't you?
No.
This is actually now an ad for California.
Yes.
Yeah, move to California and check out Avatar: The Way of Water at your local multiplex.
But every once in a while we cut to the bongogram.
Oh my god.
It's the exact same shot every time they come back to these motherfuckers.
Just
It's
bunch
like
of
the three guys
apes.
And it's filmed in a pan.
Yeah.
It's spinning
Yes.
and you're like, well, I'm in and out.
What, Jeff? I want you to imagine a universe where they filmed it exactly the same way they do the beacons in
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, where it's like, the bongogram has been sung, and it's literally just literally an ape sitting on a tower, and Pippin somehow gets it to start playing bongos, and then it goes to the Lord of the Rings Return of the King montage where you just see apes on mountains miles apart, and they just start playing bongos until it gets to the jungle.
The bongos are a communication method, is what we established, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they're warning George that there's people coming in.
But we only see one group of apes playing bongos.
We see one group of apes, but then we see the tiny monkey do it. We
Oh,
see Tukey
yeah.
do it. I mean,
We
they
do
all
see Tukey do it.
they all know how to send a bongo.
The jungle is all connected with Awa, all right? You like that? She's like, see, how I got the Avatar bit in there?
Check out Avatar: The Way of Water at your local multiplex. And while you're at it, subscribe to Disney Plus to check out Avatar, the 2009 one that started it all.
Great.
And while you're at it, watch Disney's Strange World.
Papyrus.
Season finale of Star Wars Andor, now airing.
I
The Santa Clauses, starring Tim Allen.
Thank you, Jeff.
Available on Disney Plus.
I really liked
Contact your cable
the,
provider and get Disney Channel.
the tour. I don't know if it's right to call them
watched this
tour
on Amazon
guides
Prime.
or safari guides.
Yeah.
But the group of folks that they have with them, holy shit, they're so funny.
They're so funny.
And it has one of my favorite bits. We're gonna get to it when we get to it, but it's another fourth wall break, and it broke me when I saw it, and I was like, holy shit, this movie still got stuff for me.
I mean, the movie does a really good thing here in that it could go sideways really quickly to have Lyle and Ursula going on this quote unquote safari.
Colonial safari,
Right.
Yeah.
But then you have these trail guides who are so quick-witted
And self-aware of it.
self-aware of
Yes.
oh, these stupid white people came here and I guess we'll take them on this trail. And
Right.
also my camera's nicer than yours.
Yo, yeah, the camera bit. And he's like, here, you can have this camera. And he says something in Swahili. And he's like, what do you say? It's he said, that's nice. It's got a smudge on the lens, but he prefers the Leica. And he has a very
Yeah.
intricate Leica camera.
He's like, your lens is dirty as the equipment to fix it.
The Leica 35 millimeter camera was a good bit. But yeah, they're trying to do an ape sightseeing tour. And
Because Leslie Mann wants to see the apes.
wants to see the apes.
Yeah, what does she do?
Oh, we're going to talk about Leslie Mann in this
At one
movie.
point, she says, "I'm going to go to my job," and seemingly she just walks into work and there's a party for her.
Oh, that's right.
But we get introduced to the white ape legend. Is that sort of problematic? The white ape legend? I don't know. Like I didn't. It didn't catch me off guard, but there was a moment where they were saying, "I'm like, oh, this is a '97 movie line." But I don't know. I didn't see too many problematic things with that, unless if you guys did.
No.
So
I think that this movie is smart in the way, because we're talking about the trail guides.
yeah,
It's smart in the way it uses those guys to kind of cut down the like the unintentional racism it might stumble into.
yeah. That's what Anna was just saying. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and so we get some more. We talked about like the camera bit, and there's like more bits of them at the camp. We get a little bit of. I love the aerial shots that are like George's POV, just like swinging through and like watching them.
Yeah.
And it's like you would not notice like a dude like swinging.
Yeah.
right
You're like,
above. Nope. Eddie hits a tree, but still doesn't see him. Love that. And I think we're at the part where Lyle and Ursula go out to the jungle alone.
Well, first they cross a rickety bridge.
Oh yeah.
Because Lyle keeps insisting he's like, he knows the jungle. Because he's like, I went to Maui and I crossed a bridge like this. It was great.
Yeah.
But they cross a little rickety bridge, and Lyle's like, these things are sturdy, so he starts shaking it. They throw a man off this poor bridge. Like, one of the trail guys goes flying off the bridge and falls hundreds of feet.
And
That's when the narrator has to pause the movie and say, don't worry, no one dies in this movie. He's fine.
They just get really big boo-boos. And then it cuts to camp, and it's a dude with like a little bit of a gauze on his head looking really mad at Lyle. That's a good bit.
And I do like that the lead trail guy is Richard Roundtree, the original Shaft. It's very funny that Shaft is in this movie.
I did not know that.
There's also a good part where they're like, watch out for that tree. And then it like cuts to Richard Roundtree.
This is great, Jeff. This is
I just
wonderful
wanted to
content.
say that happens.
Jeff,
Yeah.
do you know the Shaft theme song?
Shaft. Who's the coolest man?
I was curious if you knew that.
He does. It's,
Okay.
I'm not
well,
gonna
I can't question it because I've never seen Shaft. So
Well,
you could be singing much
Anna,
like your other
have you not seen
rendition.
Shaft? Have you not seen Shaft, or have you not seen Shaft?
What?
Yes.
What?
Okay, so there are 5 Shaft movies.
It's yes to
important.
all of them.
This is important. There are 5 Shaft movies. 3 of them are just named Shaft, and they are all part of the same story. Like Shaft 1, Shaft 4, and Shaft 5 are all just called Shaft. So if you said, "Hey, do you want to see Shaft?" I wouldn't.
You have to be very specific.
You have to be very specific about which
And
Shaft.
say
But
the
you
year.
can't say like Shaft 5 because that's not what it's called. You have to be like
It's Shaft.
Shaft year it was made.
Right.
Because there's Shaft, and then it's a Shaft in Africa, and then I can't remember what Shaft 3 is called, but then it is 2000 Shaft, where Sam Jackson plays the nephew of the OG Shaft, and the real Shaft pops up at the end. And then there's Shaft 2019,
2019.
2019.
which is
yesterday.
about Jesse T. Usher as the son of Sam Jackson Shaft. And then the OG Shaft is also in the movie. There's 3 different Shafts in this movie. Like, there's 3 Shafts in
That
this
should have
movie.
been Shaft 3.
There's 5 Shaft movies. 3 of them are named Shaft with 3 separate Shafts. It's a really
my head is
convoluted.
starting to hurt.
I just really wanted to get that to discuss this.
I could tell.
Yeah. But they're out in the jungle alone looking for the ape, or the white ape. And that's when they get approached by a lion.
Just approached.
Just approached. The lion isn't
He
being
comes up and he's like, "Hey, what's up?"
It's just like, hey, how you doing,
He goes
guys?
like, "Hey, you want to buy some watches?" Opens up his pelt.
He's like, get back, get back. Lyle quickly trips and gets knocked out. He does that a lot in this movie. He trips and gets knocked
Yeah.
out. And then I wrote it down. 11 minutes and 10 seconds. We're 11 minutes and 10 seconds in the movie
Before we see George.
before Brendan Fraser, George of the Jungle, appears.
I wrote in all caps, "He's hot."
He's
I mean, I think we know
Yes.
what my reaction was at 6 years old.
I think, Jeff, it's your phrase that you normally say when you say this, but George is not a snack in this movie.
Oh, he's the full course.
Full meal.
He's the full meal.
The tan on this man,
Oh my god.
very fake, but it still works.
Yeah, and the hair. Cue the hair ranking music now.
George of the jungle, strong as he can be. Watch out for that tree. George of the jungle lives a life that's free. Watch out for that tree.
It's like the perfect beach wave.
Oh my lord.
It's got volume.
Let's bring up the list.
I got it.
Well, I don't need the list. Put it in number fucking 1.
Whoa!
It's going number 1. Okay.
Have you guys been ranking his hair?
Yes, we have a
Yeah,
whole.
it's number 1.
It's number 1.
I don't even have to think about it.
Not even a question. It's number 1. Like Mrs. Winterbourne, and then Still Breathing. Still Breathing. He had pretty good.
Still
hair.
Breathing's number 1 right now.
Although Airhead's pretty good hair. But that's not, I don't think that's his real hair.
It's not real hair. It's totally a wig, and so I kind of dock it for that.
Here's what we got right now.
And George of the Jungle, Still Breathing. Oh, there's 2 Mrs. Winterbourne rankings.
Still Breathing, the horniest I've
because
ever
he plays a
gotten on mic.
twin in the movie.
I put this thing fully around in my mouth.
Yeah. So George of the Jungle, absolutely number 1 hair. Absolutely.
It's so good.
And it's real.
Yeah.
It's absolutely his own hair. Fraser,
What vitamins was he taking?
he's got the flow.
Brendan, what were they?
I could only dream of trying to have the flow Fraser gets. I will never get there. And we'll never.
Let's get you a sea salt spray.
A sea salt spray?
A sea salt spray.
Is that what it is?
A sea salt spray.
Okay.
All right, Stuart, let's get you a sea salt spray.
George's sea salt spray is just the jungle.
Check back in a few episodes when we tried sea salt sprays.
Yes.
Quickly, like this was like where we talked about this earlier, how like the practical effects sort of make a comedic jump in this movie, because it is a real lion that they're filming, and they're doing it the standard Hollywood way of like there's no actors nearby this lion, they're filming it clean, and then filming their POVs of the lion clean. But then when George and the lion fight, it cuts to like puppetry, like a fake stuffed lion. Just imagining a PA, just sad PA throwing this puppet at Brendan Fraser to take. I'm just like, and action, lion, 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 and just like throwing a lion at Brendan Fraser. He's like, I think you need to throw a little bit higher because like the lion's leaping on him.
Let's get that PA a ladder. That's safe, right? You'll be fine.
You'll be fine. This is a big stuffed
This
lion.
fight is so funny.
It's very funny.
But I also I like that this show or this movie continues to use the cartoon sound effects.
yes.
Like it's like
Doing?
like doing, boop. Anytime he gets his head hit and he shakes his, like,
Yeah. And then he spins the lion like a basketball.
he's like,
Yeah.
And he's got the best like cartoon smile with
Yeah.
everything. It's so prominent in the movie when he's just like, yeah, George, like this is
George
cool.
fight lion.
George, do this.
George, do this. And then he like throws the lion. He does like a wrestling move on it.
There's a moment where I think you already kind of said it, but I like the fake paw just kind of like comes into frame and it's like boop. And I thought of in Hocus Pocus, they do the same thing where like the cat is clearly fake. And at one point he's like, how could you do that, you fool? And he slaps one of the characters with his paw. It's just like boop. And I'm like, oh, so we just did a big cat now with a little
Yes. Nice little puppet cat slap.
I mean, the thing is, immediately you're getting that Fraser is so locked in to
Oh
the
my
idea of
God.
this movie. Like, there's actors who, given a role like this, would try and, you know, I'm trying to think of the correct wording to say, but Fraser plays this with such integrity
Yeah.
to just fully let himself go.
Well, because you also have to fall in love with George. So if
Yes.
you like overdo it and
Yeah.
it's all physical comedy and it's all like jokes, then that's the end.
But like he has the integrity to just let himself be the character and do whatever the story demands for him to like accomplish the comedic goals of this movie or whatever he needs to do. Like there's some actors who wouldn't be willing to kind of look as much like a doofus in this movie as he
Like
does.
Travolta.
Yeah, like, you know, there's a lot of actors who, and actors obviously usually have egos, pretty big egos, and they don't want to be seen to be the fool. Fraser, very willing to let himself be seen the fool.
Yeah.
In basically all of his movies that we've covered. This one, especially, like, he's willing to basically be dumb, crash into trees, be a total farce, and still be a hero at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool.
Well, because it all feels so genuine.
Yes.
Yeah.
He plays the characters with such a genuine sincerity.
Adam,
And you get that right away.
Yes, Stuart.
lion fight. Brendan, where are you at with this?
One of the things that struck me first was that he knew the names of the wrestling moves he was using on the lion, and he's been isolated in the jungle. Yes.
I'm really interested to get like Adam's like deep philosophical take on this movie.
Yeah, I was hoping you guys wouldn't ask me about that.
Well, gear up.
Phenomenon, like, you know, you just kind of set yourself up.
Like if Fraser like did Encino Man and he's now like stamped as like the comedic like actor, your performance in Phenomenon stamped you as our philosophical guest. So give the people what they want, Adam, and have something prepped and ready because we are going to come back to you on this
Okay,
movie.
come back to me. Yes.
He's just gonna be over there like reading.
Immanuel Kant.
We're gonna
somehow
be
bring
looking.
this
He's like reading Nietzsche in the corner. He's like, I don't know how this relates, guys.
But then, so he takes care of the lion, and then Ursula faints, a thing that she does a lot in this movie. She does pass out a lot.
Get it
Leslie
together.
Mann. Let's sidebar into Leslie Mann for a second. What do we think about her in this movie?
I
Babe.
think that yeah, she's a babe. I don't think that like Hollywood had realized how funny she is yet. And I
Yeah.
think that she was just used as like a damsel. She has moments, but I don't think like they realized how good she could be.
I agree, and I think there's not enough call to attention on the damsel in distress bit because there are some, but I don't think there's enough. There's one bit at the very end when Ursula's like, my hero, and then she breaks fourth wall. Did I really just say that? And like I think we could have used like a couple more bits of that because like I kind of forget that this movie is self-aware in terms of her character. I forget that a little bit, and sometimes it is just like, oh, like she is just the damsel in distress.
She is not written as funny as Leslie Mann is playing her as funny.
Correct.
Because Leslie Mann, very funny actress.
Yeah.
She's very good. And I think she's fine in this movie. The problem is she's written like a damsel, and Leslie Mann is just taking that and running with it
Yeah.
as a comedic actress.
Yeah.
And spicing up a lot of lines that weren't intentionally written to be funny.
Yeah.
Like, just her delivery of, like, basic dialogue and, like, in coverage is funny.
Yeah.
Like he'll just look at her and she'll be like, oh, I didn't know about that. And, like, that was a bad example, but, like, she just has a way of making every line read in a funny, awkward way.
Yeah.
And I think the mismatch of the script and her performance doesn't do her any favors. Because at times you can be like, there's a weird energy she has that maybe isn't fitting with this scene. But I commend her for trying.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard because it's like George is written and also played so well that like you as the audience member, like, you know, like
Yeah.
you get what Ursula is feeling, but then on the reverse, you're sort of like, this is I get it. This is like the first woman you've ever met, but you're like, her? Okay. Like she's beautiful and everything, but I think like we said, there's just not a lot of depth to that character, and Leslie Mann does as much as she can with it.
Yeah.
But there's just not
There's
a
not
whole
much
lot
there.
there. Yeah. I mean, she's engaged to this guy Lyle for
Why?
for what reason? Familial like
Her parents say that, like,
obligations.
Arranged marriage.
Yeah, to improve fiscal standing, which is a good
They
reason.
both they already seem very they already seem very rich. What does he have to offer her?
We're not gonna just let Adam drop that one bit and get away with it.
good reason.
Good
I
reason.
mean, yeah. Why work when you can get married?
I think
Anyway.
Anna was
You know-
just convinced. Anna's sold.
I'm in. I've been trying to be a trophy wife for years, but no one's, you know.
Same.
We're all trying.
Yeah. I think this is where we transition to the treehouse, which is where I think you said $55 million.
Well, $55 million is the whole jungle.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it.
35 million is definitely
Yeah.
that fucking treehouse.
Yeah, which is built
It's
out
got
of a husk of a
elevator.
plane.
It's got an elevator. It's got running water. Like, it is a decked out treehouse.
It has like a full kitchen.
Yeah. And like, part of me wonders, it's like, I know it's very sad to think that they just like tore it all down at
Yeah.
Wrap.
Oh no, they definitely did.
But
that's
good
exactly what happened.
God almighty, like, imagine like a kid's show looking for a set. And they're just like, we just need like something that doesn't cost a lot of money, something that's already built. Wait a minute. And this is 1997. It's like, didn't George just wrap production? I'm like, well, actually, they're 2 days away from it. Okay, call them right now. Tell them not to burn down the treehouse. We're using that treehouse.
I like that you think that they would just like set it ablaze.
It's like, all right, guys. They send in like the props for a flame.
I mean, yeah, this treehouse is decked out.
Oh my God.
And also, again, I know we have to suspend a lot of like reality for the purpose of enjoying the plot of the movie, but it's like, where did all the linens come from?
That's what I was about to ask.
You cannot assume that all of this was just on the plane. Did he go like?
Did he do a shopping spree?
Ape is wearing an apron. There are dish towels. Okay.
Anna,
There's
Anna,
blankets.
please. He's wearing an apron.
Cough.
I think you guys are gonna have to do the rest of this episode.
Well, I mean, I kind of assume that. Sorry, I was looking at my fish. I kind of assume that because everyone like parachuted out of the plane is the idea, right? Oh, George is coming. No, I'm kidding. Everyone parachuted out of the plane, but he's trapped on the plane is the idea. Because you see all of them like in the little cartoon at the beginning outside the plane.
Yeah.
So I think George basically took all the luggage for a ride.
Well, no, in the beginning, he's like swinging from his parachute in the tree.
Oh, is that what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he gets parachuted.
So take it back.
I take it back. Maybe they all left their luggage on the plane.
It really is the linens for me that bugs me the most.
I get luggage, but like, are you taking an apron with you on a trip?
I mean,
Are you sewing all those blankets together?
You taking
Like,
dish towels?
You got pillowcases on the
Clearly,
pillows.
clearly he's living the castaway life.
And
like Tom
one can
Hanks.
assume, does he have a mattress?
It has to.
It looks like a mattress.
It looks like a circular mattress that Leslie Mann sleeps on a lot.
Because she's fainting
Right.
a lot.
Every other scene in this movie.
I mean, I will say there's a moment too where I think she kind of, I don't know if it was an intentional thing, but when, she first meets our talking ape
Yes.
and she faints and then she wakes up again and she's talking to him and she's like, okay, I'm going to faint again.
Pass out again.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay. A little bit of self-awareness.
Yeah. And yeah, that's where we get the intro to Ape, John Cleese. I really just want to call him John Cleese. Just imagine.
Didn't do.
He's like, oh, yes, I'm an ape, and I.
And then she starts screaming. It's like, did the ape just talk? And I'm like, oh, sorry.
Yes, I did talk, didn't I?
And it's like, I could see my talking around her upsets her, so I shall not be talking around her that much.
This is the age of John Cleese just popping up in everything.
Oh my God.
This is like that period where it's like, if you're like, you watch a thing, John Cleese probably going to be in it.
I think it was like just in like one of the Jungle Book movies before.
He was.
this.
He was in the Jungle Book. And then which is the live
1994.
like the live action Jungle Book that everyone forgets about from 1995 or whenever.
What?
Directed by Steven Sommers.
Yes,
Yep.
it went through The Mummy right afterward.
Yep.
It's crazy. John Cleese in that movie.
What is
he's
that
in
cast?
He's in this. He does the first two Harry Potters, and then he does two Bond movies at this time playing Q.
I mean, make your money.
Like for 5 years, John Cleese just kind of omnipresent in Hollywood movies, and then he just like goes back to doing what he was doing.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of love when actors admit that, like, when someone's like, later on, it's like, well, why'd you do that movie? And they're like, a paycheck.
The ultimate example, Michael Caine in Jaws 4, where he's like, he said, I have not seen the movie, though I've heard it's terrible, but I've seen the house that it built, and it's terrific.
One thing that I guess I didn't really think about is what landscape are they in where there's apes, elephants, and lions all living in the same jungle habitat.
That's just the
George
jungle.
brought them together.
African jungle, clearly.
Yeah.
Oh, you did not
Lions are in the Sahara Plains.
Did you not pay attention at the beginning of this movie?
Well,
And it's an Indian elephant, by the way.
yeah.
It's not an African
have you
elephant,
been
which is
to
also the
Africa?
Sahara
Got
Plains.
lost.
Stuart, are you saying that Disney would generalize jungles?
Are you saying you're an expert on African you know.
Disney would
Whatever.
never do
Folks, starting today, I'm going to open a GoFundMe for all of our listeners. We're going to send Stuart to Africa so we can get to the bottom of this shit.
that. Or, you know, if
Send
it's through
him to the
Disney or
jungle.
sponsor, just at least Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
Where they think
Oh, yeah.
all
On
of these
that
people...
note, please make sure to visit Disney's Animal Kingdom, available in Orlando, Florida, with a new edition,
It's not
Avatar, The World of Pandora.
I've been there. It's not hard, it's not easy for me to admit that I've been to Disney World. Please don't call me a Disney adult. It's not what I am. I went there
It's a fun
against
place.
my will.
It's a good time.
Yeah, it's fun, but
Did you go on the Avatar
I
ride?
did. It was
Were
a
you-
lot for my senses.
You're just...
Well, admittedly, I was on a substance, and getting on that ride, I was like, oh no, I've made a terrible mistake. Because also the entire queue, the waiting line that curves through, you know, until you get to the ride
Oh my god.
is decked out with like everything from the movie. Which when I went to Disney World, I had not seen the movie in like years. So I was like, oh, okay, sure. It's like Sigourney Weaver talking at me. But yeah, the ride. So all of this build up is horrible. And then I get to the ride and you have to basically straddle it. And I was like,
you do board it like it's a creature. I've been on this
board it
ride.
like a creature. And then it tilts
Like,
forward.
Stuart, this
It
is how
tilts
you
forward.
have to sit on it like this.
It tilts forward and then the whole screen you're like, "Bleh."
It was the talking Sigourney Weaver for me.
She just at every point her voice is there, but it's like very dark and like jungly, so it's not wet, but also there's moisture. So it's really bad.
There's a bunch of blue people.
No, thank God. They do have them like in what those weird water bath tubs things. I didn't like it.
Go visit Avatar, World of Pandora at Disney's Animal Kingdom Ride Flight of Passage. And check out Avatar, The Way of Water, available in your local multiplex today.
So eventually, when Ursula comes to, we get more George exposition. We see Shep,
Yes.
which is his dog, which is an Indian elephant, which I've already made my grievances so far about an Indian elephant being in Africa, but we won't talk about that. It's fine.
They're right next to each other. I mean,
Are they?
Right.
It sounds like they're
Right
separated from
next
an
to each
ocean in a big giant
I mean,
landmass.
it's like here and here.
Is that to scale?
It's close enough.
Okay.
You got lost.
But yes, he has a pet elephant.
He's like, hey, he walked into like the Saudi Arabia and was just like, hey, you seen any elephants around there? I don't think there's some over there. And he meant to go this way to India, but he went that way to Africa.
There is a short film sequel to George in the Jungle. There isn't. I'm just saying there should be one where it's a 10-minute sequence like Up, but instead of Up, it's George finding Shep as a baby elephant.
Would watch.
Yeah, I would watch
Like
it.
the little short they do before they used to show a Pixar movie.
Or
Yeah.
no,
Do
I
they
just mean
still do
like
that? I don't
imagine like the beginning of Up with Ferguson and his wife, but
I would not like to picture
instead
that right
of that
now.
10-minute one, it's George as a young like child learning how to live in the jungle, finding a baby elephant who's also alone,
Wow.
and coming together.
You can't. Do you want 4 people to cry here today?
And it's just him and like the baby elephant playing together. Oh yeah, they find a little tree house. Sorry. So I'm
We learn
already-
how
already
you know
starting to
he
cry.
speaks English.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the elephant teaches him things. Yeah, it's great.
Did you make a sequel to Up called Down? It's about Carl Fredrickson going to hell.
He's dead.
It's about it starts with them being lowered to the ground.
And you just see
Russell crying.
Russell crying at the grave.
Doug the dog.
And that's when he's 18 years old, and the next day he goes to college and meets Andy and Riley from Inside Out. Sorry, just throwing that in there. If there was a Pixar movie that brought Russell, Andy, and Riley all together, all right,
You'd be in.
I'd be in. Fucking in.
Well, clearly he can't because Andy died in a horrific car accident. So.
Moving on. Then there's a little bit of stuff where they're searching for Lyle. The monkey scene. The monkey
Yeah.
scene was very cute. I like that
You
one.
love a good monkey.
It's like the monkey is named Monkey, just a little monkey, not having a good time with their pals.
I got one thing I want to talk about before we get to the monkeys.
What do you want to talk about? The monkeys?
While she's passed out in the bed, he comes up and he licks her.
Oh yeah,
Because he tells Ape,
Ooh,
and he's like,
strange-looking
he's
fella.
like, I feel things I haven't felt before, and I'm like, yeah, you're mad horny, bro. like clearly he's feeling something in the nether regions.
he when she faints, he looks under her shirt and
Yeah.
he's like, wait a second.
Wait a minute.
He's like, what are these? And Ape's like, it's a woman. He's like, what's that?
Those are breasts, my dear. We all have them.
Colloquially called tits.
I also think as an adult watching this, there's a lot more as an adult where you're like, oh, this is not a kid's movie.
Yeah, he's really thirsty.
Yeah,
And then
and
she
also-
gets very thirsty too.
They both get thirsty very quickly.
Yes.
Also, as an adult watching it, I'm like, he's hot and he's a homeowner. Sign me up.
Oh my gosh. He's also like part of the neighborhood watch, kind of. Takes care of his community.
He has like a family plan for bongograms.
Yep. Man.
But yeah, the monkeys.
Yeah, the monkey. It's just a little scene.
with the monkeys.
George and Ursula helping the little monkey try to make friends. Great monkey acting, by the way. Oh my goodness. This
A real
mon-
monkey.
A real monkey doing some wonderful performance. Holy
He is
cow.
a good guy.
It's a good acting monkey.
Yeah, the monkey's just like.
The monkey should have hosted the 1998 Academy Awards.
Yeah,
Should have.
he should have. I
But
agree.
didn't.
I'm sure PETA would have something.
Man,
Say
what
about
is the deal? Like, what is the structure of this monkey scene? There's like the one monkey who has to scare off the lion.
No, so it's like the monkey isn't playing with the other monkeys because they're rejecting him.
Okay.
And so George with Ursula is like trying to help the monkey out and be like, go on, like you can do it. And so the monkey, oh yeah, there is the lion portion of it where like all the monkeys don't want to play with little monkey. And then the lion shows up and then the monkey does like the Tarzan like thing. And then the lion's like, nah, and then goes away. And then there's a little thing with George and the lion where they wink at each other because they got a little thing going on.
Yeah, he got the lion to come and attempt to attack the monkeys to like boost up our friend.
And then all the...
Which leads to the question. Earlier, when the lion tried to attack Ursula and Lyle,
Did George...
did George like set it up because he was thirsting for
He
that Leslie
saw-
man?
He saw Lyle and Ursula and like, hide your kids, hide your wife, because I'm releasing this lion on you guys. And then, I mean, a lot of this other stuff forward is just more George and Ursula business of like them being in the jungle together, learning more about each other. There's a little bit about George and Ape's mating ritual thing where it's like you're gonna tuck your lips in and like spread your cheeks out, show your top teeth, and it's like trying to teach him how to like
Yeah.
It's like, I think George is a great like Ape. How do I make Ursula my mate? Just like,
Yeah.
oh, you want to woo her, do you?
I wrote in my notes at that point, George wants to fuck. he goes from being like, I think I like her, to how would I make her my mate?
He doesn't succeed at first. I mean, she's in, but he
She's-
throws the leaves.
Yeah.
Did you throw the leaves?
He throws the leaves, right. And he like does the whole ape mating ritual and she's like, I better get out of here.
Yeah.
It's like the opening scene of Barbarian.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if this guy's right.
At this point in my notes, I wrote toucans be crazy.
Oh my God.
Tuki Tuki.
Tuki.
I think it's mostly, I was really transfixed by, you always forget about toucans and like how they're like this much body and then there's like this much beak. It's crazy.
That was
Like,
definitely...
it would be
Do
the
you
equivalent
always
of-
forget that?
It would be the equivalent of if my lips went out to like here.
Yeah, it's a beak, Jeff.
But it's so big. No other birds have like that big of a beak.
in comparison to the rest of their bodies.
I'm going to the
Yeah.
internet for that one.
Leave Tuki alone.
No, it's cool.
He's very self-conscious
it's
about his big
crazy
beak.
that half their body is just their beak.
Doesn't like
What
people
about, like,
talking about his
a-
beak.
No, that's not right.
There's a cute scene where George and Ursula dance.
Well, first they go to the water hole, the big and expensive water hole set that the narrator says.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge it because the narrator makes a point of saying, "Here we are at this big and expensive water hole set,"
Yeah.
and Mr. Boombastic starts playing.
Yes.
It's really strange. You're just like they're just like hanging at the shot, and you just start, Mr. Lava, Mr. Lava.
And then that's, I think,
They call me Mr. Bombastic, Mr. Fantastic, and I don't know the rest of the lyrics after that.
tell me this movie was made in the 90s without telling me this movie was made in the 90s.
It has Mr. Bombastic in it.
But yeah, that's when we get to the mating ritual, I think, where George
Yes.
tries to woo Ursula. But then there's a cute dance that George and Ursula do.
I wrote dance scene kind of transcendent.
Very transcendent. I wrote
The
down
dance scene kind of the best part of the movie.
I wrote down, this is so cute. The whole movie could be like this.
Yeah, this like that scene's so good.
It's very good.
It plays that.
But it plays it very softly.
Yeah.
Both times that it's played, it feels like there's like a sound imbalance.
Yeah. But I was very charmed. Very charmed.
Adam, how'd you feel about this dance scene?
I somehow like blocked it out. I think when dancing happens on screen, I just start looking away, and I'm sorry. It didn't charm me, Stuart.
Where are you feeling at this point in the movie?
What was I feeling at this point in the movie? I just wanted this, like, I don't know. I really liked the monkeys, and I think I was just thinking about monkeys.
Yes.
Um,
So you
Yeah.
when was the last time you saw this movie prior to this?
I remember sitting on the floor cross-legged in front of a TV that was as big as I was.
Okay.
So it's been a long time.
Okay. So that's what I'm curious about with your new like watching this movie again.
Oh, watching it
How does
again?
it compare to the expectations and memories you had?
Um,
Like at this point, are you like at this point like, what did I see in this? Or are you like, oh,
I was just surprised how everything I saw, I'm like, oh wait, I didn't forget that. This is just a clear memory that's just been lingering and is now brought back. Yeah, it was I can't describe it. Come back to me on that.
Adam having an existential crisis over here about George of the Jungle.
Well, we asked him to think about something. I think he's just been thinking about it. So.
You gotta do a philosophical thesis on this movie
Yeah,
at the end of
yeah.
the episode.
Unfortunately.
I think the next bit is where it's probably my favorite joke in the movie, because it's where Lyle is with all the the guides, and he's like filling the minutes like, oh, like I was like beat up by this ape man, and like, you know, a few lions came out and like got me, and I would have gotten them, but I was outnumbered. And they're all like poking holes. It's like, oh wait, so first it was one lion, now it's two lions. It's like, what's going on here? And then he's like, well, like, you know, like I would have totally taken care of it. And then he trips and he like lands on elephant poop. Perfect comedy. But then one of the guides breaks the fourth wall, looks at the camera, it's like, this is the part where we're going to throw our heads back and start laughing. Ready?
We know what he says first. He says, "Man trips into a pile of dung." Perfect evidence of physical comedy.
Now
Now-
this is the part where we are going to throw our heads back and laugh. Ready? Ha ha!
And the camera does like a snap zoom back, and we just get all three of them. Ah, ha, ha, ha.
I cackled at that.
It's an excellent joke.
so
this,
funny.
This movie is camp,
Oh yeah.
Yes.
like 1,000%.
In the sense that like both you watch this movie at camp, and it is also camp B.
Yeah. Love that bit.
Yeah, I took my VHS to camp and I was like, ladies, I have something to show you. You're gonna love it.
That's kind of the start of the sexual revolution. It's just showing this movie to everybody.
This particular movie,
Yes.
yeah. Or just showing anything that you've discovered at camp. You're away from your parents. It's a little crazy. You're all in your bunk beds and you're like, I snuck something in. It's George of the Jungle.
You get it out and
There's
like,
the one kid who brings George of the Jungle 2, and it's promptly
it's like, ugh, boo, get out of here. He has to sleep in the rain that night.
Yeah.
And then this is where Lyle and his gang find George
Yeah.
and Ursula. And Lyle takes a gun that he thinks is a lighter gun.
yeah.
Like it's just a lighter, but which he teased at the beginning of the movie. But then it's an actual gun.
Yes. And there's also two poachers who are with him who are trying
Yes.
to get an ape.
Yeah.
We haven't even mentioned them. They're not that important, but we should just mention that they're there.
Right. They just see the talking ape and they're like, we're going to make a fortune off of this place. From the lawyer from Jurassic
Yeah.
Park.
They remind me of like the dog catchers in 101 Dalmatians.
Yes.
Like they're just it's just two characters who like hate each other but at work like they're always like, you're so dumb. No, you're so dumb.
Right.
And
Jasper and Jeeves? Is that the guys?
something
in
like that.
101 Dalmatians?
Maybe, yeah. And so then a little a fight breaks out. George is like beating. There's like a fun thing where like he's punching one guy and he brings his elbow back and he elbows the other guy, and it happens like for 20 seconds in the movie. Like, that's really, really good, funny comedy.
But a whole fight breaks out. Lyle pulls the gun that he thinks is a lighter and shoots George.
It's like, George, no!
And then the movie cuts to black. The credits come up, and you get a sad version of the George of the Jungle theme where it's like,
Or you get
Directed by Sam Weisman.
George of the Jungle.
Watch out.
We will remember you.
It's just
Watch
George.
out for that bullet.
It's a sad version of Dayla. It's acoustic.
There's like a chorus behind.
Oh no.
It's just, hey there, George of the Jungle, what's it like?
George was of the jungle.
Was
George, formerly of the jungle.
Yeah.
It ends with the post credits come up of his grave. No.
Good God.
With
But no, the narrator does
the
say,
apes are
"No
playing
one
sad
dies."
bongos, like, and then all the pirates in like the swampland are very sad, and then Teodama's like, you need a captain to go and get George from the
Oh my
jungle.
God, why are you bringing this as dead man's chest?
Coming back
There's
down.
no connection
Is
here.
Mighty Joe Young.
No! No!
So, what's become of my George? Cut to black.
Another movie I had on VHS.
That showed up in the suggested section when I was done with George of the Jungle.
As it should.
Mighty Joe Young. What a super fucking underrated movie. Bill Paxton. Oh my God. And
R.I.P.
Charlize Theron. Man.
Stuart get a little thirsty over there.
Bill Paxton, Charlize Theron, and Mighty Joe Young.
I think he's thirsty for the ape.
I'm just...
For Joey Mighty Joe Young.
Mighty Joe.
Anyway, no, we cut to a plane.
Yes.
With George is like asleep on the plane, and Ursula's like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna." Oh, there's a funny bit. The narrator's like, "And Ursula takes George back to America for the best medical treatment." And Ursula's like, "I'm gonna take you back to America to get the best medical treatment." And then kisses him on the forehead, and then
They go to San Francisco.
and we figure out that Lyle was put in prison.
Yes.
There's a little lineup scene where it's just like a bunch of dudes, and then poor little
That
Lyle
like
there.
clearly don't look like Lyle.
Right. And it's
Like
like,
existed.
I do not forget a face, and that man fell in elephant poop. The poachers,
They
are
get
just-
they get deported.
They get
but they end up just staying for some reason.
yeah, I was really
Not
lost
quite
on that whole
explained.
bit.
So the poachers said they're gonna go get Ape.
Yeah,
Gonna go get John Cleese.
gonna go get John Cleese. It's their whole beat.
And
plot.
then I think this is the less engaging half of the movie
yeah,
Yes.
when it's George in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like, all the stuff in the jungle's great, and when he gets to San Francisco, I'm like, okay, some of this is fun.
That's why I was like, it. So much happens, but it does feel like long because when we
Yeah.
get to this part, this back half of the movie kind of drags.
Yes.
yeah, because like the notes, I only have like a small section of notes written about this bit, and then it gets right back to the jungle, and I'll just like read them off real quick. It's showered George, shopping scene, Armani, Ursula's mother, quote, jazzed on Java.
Yes.
That was a really good bit. And then it's the Golden Gate Bridge, or not the Golden Gate, the Bay Bridge scene.
Because basically all the bits during this are like the fish out of water comedy like bits
Yeah.
you've seen before.
Yeah,
It's like he tries on modern clothing.
yeah. Which
It's literally just Encino Man at this point.
when he does put on the Armani suit, I'm like,
Oh, he's looking like a meal.
That's interesting because for me, it's when he puts on the dress. Because I watched this morning again with like notes, but when I watched it with my friend, and both of us were like, he is pulling off that dress.
he is.
And it's like gender norms, gender roles. He doesn't. I'm like, good on you, because they literally call Ursula out. The narrator does.
Yeah.
He
Yeah, he's
calls her
like-
a conservative gender roles or
Yeah.
something. Like she has to get him changed because God forbid he wears a dress.
Right. And early in the movie, George was like, there's no people, so George don't get embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like, what is embarrassed? And so George just doesn't feel anything wrong with wearing a dress, which is very
And he
progressive.
shouldn't. Have you seen him?
Yeah,
In that dress?
and I think it's another thing about Brendan's like willingness to give himself to the story is that he's willing to wear a dress.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Adam?
What? I mean, you said it all very well. He wears a dress.
You
Looks
like him in the
good.
dress?
What?
You like him in the dress?
Yeah, he's fine. Looks fine in the dress. Yeah. I mean, I like him in the loincloth.
The loincloth does show more.
Well, I did get jealous of him in the loincloth. Actually,
Adam's like, we cannot keep
I
doing
did. Yeah, I did feel angry for a lot of this movie because it's just too hard to get that physique, and
Yeah,
I
you can ask
want it.
our good boy Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Yes. I saw a review of this movie that said the only thing more refined than his abs in this movie is his comedic timing.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's a few other smaller bits, but I think the next big thing that I have is the Bay Bridge scene. Unless if anyone else has a bit in between. I mean, there's a bit with Ursula's mother.
I mean, I like that, like, George is at home and he's so innocent in so many ways, and he's watching that commercial and he's like, George, make Ursula coffee.
Right.
Ursula loved George. And I'm like, you're not far off.
Yeah, I'm not Laurent.
Women do love coffee.
Also, he's wearing a t-shirt and basketball shorts, and I don't know why I got like really enamored by that. The dress was fine, but it's something about like Brendan Fraser and like the physique that he is with long hair, just sitting on a couch, like scooping like cups of coffee into his mouth, with basketball shorts and a t-shirt. I'm like, yes,
Very
one of
relatable.
us.
I do also want to point out the scene where we get confirmation that George is hung.
Yes.
Yeah. Betsy.
Because
Our
Betsy.
bestie.
Betsy.
Yes.
Again, meant for adults.
Yeah, he comes out of the shower and he's wearing nothing. We get the classic like belly button up shot, and then the shot between the legs, showing you everything we can without getting the R rating. And Betsy is like, it's big.
I guess.
Well, yeah, she's like, that's why he's the king of the jungle.
Yes.
Yep.
And we get confirmation. George is just like, he's packing heat.
George is hung.
Lyle got that little pistol, but George is packing heat.
Yes, he
The
is.
lighter pistol.
So then, yeah, it's the new scene when it's like, it's such a great day out, you must get outside. And George's like, me? And the weatherman breaks fourth wall. Yes, you, George, go. And so he runs outside and does his own little George thing. And then it's the Bay Bridge scene.
Yeah.
Where,
He scales the Bay Bridge.
yeah,
Does he see the guy? No, he scales the Bay Bridge for the hell of it, right?
yeah,
And then he sees the guy?
yeah. Then he sees the parachuter who got tangled.
Yeah.
Which, what a fucking dumbass. Where was he trying to go? Like, I know you have little control falling from the sky, but with the parachute, you have at least a little bit of control. What the fuck was that?
To not
meant?
aim for the Bay Bridge.
Right. There's a lot of other things you could land on.
The water.
The water.
The land.
Anywhere.
You said you're like, "Ooh," right into the...
Oh, no. This was totally unexpected.
And he's like, oh.
Get me out of here.
And you know who we got to talk about? The speed at which Ursula gets there.
Yeah, onto
Does
the
she-
boat.
Yeah, because she's,
Yes.
It's on a schedule.
she's like a work party.
Yeah.
And with her dad, who's like, oh, I'm so excited to see Lyle again. And then
And
she looks at the TV and she sees George. She's like, George! And she's like, next thing you know, she's on a boat.
Already there.
Already there.
Yeah.
And he like swings down to her and they kiss. And that's how her parents find out that she's seeing a jungle man.
Do they kiss?
They don't kiss.
Oh, they hug.
I
The
thought they
embrace.
hugged. They just hugged.
Same thing.
But he
for Jeff.
lands right exactly where she is, and then they just both, from his parachute, pop up, and she's like, George! You're like, what?
Yeah, and that's when Ursula's mom tells George to leave. Also, we haven't been like saying that there's been cut back and forth to the poachers trying to get the John Cleese ape.
Yeah.
I think at this point this is when there's a scene where they tranquilize ape, and the ape's like trying to like crawl away, and ape goes to like Tookie and he's like, "Get George," and then he's like, "All right, you're coming with
He casts
us."
Animal Messenger.
Fuck, you're gonna bring D&D things into this podcast now, man. Leave that on the table. All right, leave that on the table. All right.
Okay.
But yes, he does cast Animal Messenger on Tookie, and Tookie like Tookie, and then flies. And it is the classic Indiana Jones map scene where you just see Tookie like fly across the Atlantic Ocean. Would have loved if it's like you just see like a building and it's like
drops dead.
Drops back, and it's just George like eating ice cream with Ursula. We never hear about it ever again. Ape never gets rescued.
But no, Tukey does show up.
Tukey does show
And he
up.
tells George, trouble in the jungle.
Before we move on, though, I think you all are forgetting the best scene, and it's the horse scene.
Oh, yes.
We skipped around
Oh yeah.
because, again, I'm going to admit something. I was a horse girl. I know it's not easy for me to talk about, but that scene took a lot of things and put them right in place with me.
Anna is clasping her hands
Just,
together.
And I am those women. They're like, she's got a sensual intelligence, and I was like, from now on, I'm only looking for a man with sensual intelligence. And those dudes are so like aloof. They're like, what's with chicks and horses? I'm like, no, it's the beautiful man
With the horse.
with the horse.
Yeah.
The horse is a
They
contributing
do it in
factor
slow
here,
motion
but it's not-
too. It's like slow motion.
Yeah.
He's like running with the
He's
horse.
wearing like a
He's
white
wearing like a white shirt that's like open all the way.
Yeah.
Again, his hair
my
is just
God.
doing things. And then he gets real close to the horse and is like petting him, and you're like, okay, so you're sensitive. Got it. Add it to the list of things that we love
He
about
loves
you.
animals.
I
Oh
was
my gosh.
watching this with my friend, and when the dude said, "What's with chicks and horses?" I said, "What is with chicks and horses?"
Do you think you can answer the question?
I can't. I can see chicks with dudes riding horses.
But the horses themselves.
Yeah, what is it?
Oh, I don't have the answer. I'm just from Texas, so horses were kind of a built-in thing.
I think you could speak to like a broader sense of like horses from like our earliest ancestral origins was like a symbol of freedom, because horse travel was way faster than just like human travel. And so it was a way that you could like go further than you could ever go before, and it enabled you this sense of freedom that we aren't inherently inept with. So I think that's something that we all find attractive, both in a emotional, metaphorical sense, but also I think it transcends to a little bit of a romantic sense.
Yeah, chicks just want freedom.
You can also say horses are just big, cool, large muscles, long hair.
Yeah, see,
It's fun to brush their hair. Okay?
Yeah,
Sorry.
they're cool.
Yeah, I hope I can pull something out of my ass as well as Stuart just did at the end of this episode.
Thank you.
Stuart really just like grinding the shit for that one.
And I think Ursula also, there's like a little, the engagement party that's not really an engagement party because Lyle isn't there.
Yeah.
And Ursula's mom tells George that he should leave, if anything, if he truly cares about. And that's also coincides with the Tukey telling him about Ape being captured. So all those things combined, George does leave.
He cries.
He does cry.
Ugh.
I mean, Brendan Fraser just...
I also think that's George's like first interaction with someone like negative like that, like that doesn't have good intentions. Like obviously he's met Lyle, but like he, didn't. This is like his first time in his life, being faced with someone who just like lives very differently.
Yeah, and just like and is self-aware of like you don't like me, as sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we get the UPS bit. I love the UPS bit because so we cut back to Africa. A UPS truck pulls up to the village, and then they unload a box, and like coming out of it is George hunched over with
on a folding chair.
He's like, next time, George, get bigger box. He gets like some Air Nikes.
Yes.
A great Nike ad placement.
Oh my
I
lord!
don't know where he gets these Nikes from.
Neither do I.
Assume he stole them from
the
another
UPS
box.
truck,
Yeah.
maybe.
Also, the most unbelievable part of this movie is that the UPS package got there so quickly.
It would have transferred the other way because by that time they would have already gotten Ape over to Vegas and George gets to Africa. But no, they're still on the mountain, which I guess they have an explanation for that though.
Yeah.
Because they take the false trail that just takes them in circles.
They do a full circle around.
Yeah. So I guess there's a kind of an explanation for that, sort of. And then, we get the Lord of the Rings Two Towers, the Fellowship running in the mountains montage.
Except it's
George running in the jungle.
And then there's like a boat, like every kind of transportation he's taken.
Yes.
He just is like sprinting.
Dun, 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 dun. Lion King. So
Yeah.
running back to Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
This is also the part of the movie where I was like, what was the body oil budget? 55 million?
Pretty high.
Pretty high. Pretty fucking high.
54 of the 55 million went towards the body oil.
And then
Much Johnson & Johnson.
going along parallel with this is when Ursula is talking to her parents about where did George go, and then Ursula's mom's like, well, I think he left, honey. And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, like I talked to George, and I said, if he truly loved you, like, then he should go away. And it's like, this is not a man that you should be falling in love with. And this was a very interesting bit for me, because instead of Ursula just like already knowing deep down that she loves George, it's wait a minute, what did you say? I am in love with George. And it's like, wait, what? And there's like, no.
And she does not take UPS. She instead just flies there.
She's just there.
Yeah.
And she basically gets there at the same time as George.
Yeah, somehow. She knows the tracking methods to get there without the guides.
So the next bit I would like to just like kind of summarize. Because George gets there, he beats up the poachers. And then who shows up? Oh, and Ursula comes in and saves him. And then who shows up and grabs Ursula? But Lyle, who has linked up with, as far as I can tell, a group of Nazis.
Truly, exactly what I wrote is, okay, so now Lyle is the leader of a neo-Nazi military group. Like the people they're like, okay, sorry, we've done it, and they're like, when did you become a leader here?
Yeah.
Because at first he just shows up, and I'm looking at his coat, and it's like a black jacket. Mm-hmm. He's got the little like eagle
red
patch
pendant. Yeah.
with a red little symbol on it, and I'm like, it looks kind of like. And he's like, I'm a minister with the Church of Celestial Intelligence or something now. And I'm like, all right, but then a bunch of German special ops guys come in. They're like, here we are. We are here to serve you, sir. And one of them, he doesn't do the salute.
He might as well.
But it's literally a group of Nazis.
Well, it's like Jan, Hans, Franz, and Phil.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not like, you read them as Nazis, and Annie read them as Nazis. Okay.
Yeah.
I read it more as like cultish, but
Because he said, they mentioned he like linked up with a cult.
yeah.
But it's like, it's literally like a Hitler cult.
Well, I just like did he escape prison or was he let out of prison?
They never said.
I like to think like he escaped prison, went into the wilderness, met up with this cult, became leader of this cult. Like all of these things could have been very exciting, but
Yes.
they just summarize over it.
No, the cult. He met the cult, and they were like, your values and how you look at life very much align with how we work.
And so they just made him leader.
Yeah, they were like, we
Okay.
like it. He's
Yeah.
like, I have a lot of money.
Very subservient Nazis.
I wrote down elephant trunk gun.
Oh yeah.
Because there's multiple points when Tukey and the monkey and Shep, the elephant, are working in this fight against like the poachers, and they just load coconuts into the trunk. And just like using the force of trunk suction, like blows it out and like has like a little gun. Tukey literally gets shot out of a trunk up a poacher's ass. That happens. We don't talk about it, but it happens. And oh yeah, and then when Lyle takes Ursula away, and you're thinking, oh, how does George get out of like the mercenary things? How does George get out of the mercenary things? A random group of karate-driven apes from the Bongogram show up and beat the living shit out of these mercenaries.
Yeah, they all put like bandanas
on.
They had red bandanas express shipped so that they could have like a group look.
Right. They talked about this beforehand. They had to.
They're
Yeah.
like, what color? Red? Does that
Red.
feel right? Blue? Red. No, red.
Red definitely works for us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the karate gorillas show up.
We don't see the fight.
No.
It just like kind of does like a flip. It does like a flip transition.
And they have like nunchucks and shit.
And next thing you know, all the poachers and Nazis are in a cell, which is a sentence I just said. They're all in the cage, the Nazis and the poachers. And George and Ursula decide they're gonna get married.
Oh, well, there's like the whole chase thing where
Yeah.
like George goes after
Oh, yes,
Lyle
Lyle
and
and
Ursula,
Ursula.
and they fall down again with the comedic timing of tripping and falling into something. Only this time they trip and fall into a stream, which turns into a river, which turns into a rapid river. And so, but there's a boat. And so they're rowing the boat, and Lyle has a funny bit where he takes like the pendant neck part off, and then it's like the priest collar. And he's like, all right, time to officiate this wedding. He's like, do you? Or so it's like, Lyle, what the hell are you doing? George is on a vine, and he's like, this is about to be the biggest swing in history. And he like swings off this vine. The vine is moving parallel. It is not swinging. It is just a floating vine that going 10 Mach speed. Because like his wind is like, and he's like going super wickedly fast, breaking the sound barrier. And then there's Lyle doesn't see the river turns into rapids behind them. The boat then starts like tossing and turning. George is going like 1,000 miles per hour, and then you just see Ursula like, George, watch out for that tree! Bam! And he hits a fucking tree, and it like has an indent on the other side of the tree. George is still fine.
Right. So hard that it takes the tree down.
It takes the tree down, and then the tree falls over across the river. Perfectly. So where George, who is on the tree, totally fine, by the way, reaches down a hand, grabs Ursula, takes Ursula up, and now it's just Lyle in the boat. He gets to the end of the rapids where it goes into a dark cave, and you just hear like a feminine voice like, oh! It's like, it's okay, honey, we're here. Now we can finally get married. Let me see you for a second. He clicks the lighter gun, and it's not John Cleese ape. It's just an ape. He's like, whoa. He's like, no. And you hear smooching noises. And like, I'll leave it to the audience of how that panned out.
They're married.
Yeah.
Lyle married an ape that he can't get out of.
Nope.
And he's still living in this cave.
Because he's Catholic now.
Where divorce is illegal. So yeah, then there's the wedding scene. Everyone's invited, including Betsy. Betsy's there. The parents are there.
Betsy the bestie.
Betsy the bestie.
Also, George's wedding look.
Oh my god.
Serving.
Very serving.
He's looking great.
I said, okay, Kate.
All the animals. Are
Ursula's donning like more of like the jungle-esque look. Like she's just wearing like a little crop top and like.
Oh, when they have their baby.
A little, and they have a baby, George Jr.
And the narrator's like, George became the king of the jungle and found his queen.
And then he's like,
how did it happen? We're like, we just watched the movie.
well, he says, how did it happen? Cut to George on a cliffside holding George Jr. He's like, George just lucky. And then lifts up George Jr. in the Lion King pose on Pride Rock.
And then it zooms out and it's actually Pride Rock.
It is
It's
actually
just Pride Rock.
It's like,
Pride
in case
Rock.
you forgot, it's like Disney's like, we own it all.
We own it all, bitches.
We got it all.
You think we wouldn't do it? We did. And then it cuts to black.
And the
But
credits
wait.
start.
But wait.
But then you hear, what don't you know what to know what happened to me?
And then we cut
And
to
the film like emulses and like breaks apart. Cut to welcome to Las Vegas. And someone describe what we see.
We'd see a dream coming true. We see a star is born. And it's John Cleese. The human. No. still in his ape form. In like a shimmery blue suit. And they're like he's basically got a Vegas review that is a retelling, I think,
of the movie.
And the actual poachers are still like stuck in the tree as like
yeah, they're stuck as like tree props.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just like, I kept them. Those are mine now.
My guys. My boys.
guys. For my hungry boys.
And then the movie ends.
Yeah, well, his performance is great.
Yeah.
And the movie ends. That's the end of George.
I thought he did a version of like and did it my way because
he performs.
He's like,
I did it my way.
And then
The end.
And then the movie ends.
And then it's a like ska adjacent version of George of the Jungle. It's not quite ska, but
It's like in the ballpark.
Yeah. Well, it's 1997.
Yes.
Why
wasn't this nominated for an Oscar?
It should have.
Well, it was a song that was written before this movie.
Oh.
It is just used heavily in this movie.
There's the only song really that's used except for the George
and
of the
Mr.
Jungle.
Boombastic.
Oh, I'm so sorry. How could I? I forgot.
Oh, they call me Mr. Boombastic, feeling fantastic.
Also, before we, I will say in the wedding scene, I think the mom is like, get these monkeys away from me. What am I, Jane Goodall? And like the shade that Abe gives, he's like, I've met Jane Goodall, and you're no. Like, it's like, okay, sir. No wonder you're like in Vegas, like you're living your life.
Yes. I love it very much.
I just looked at my phone and I saw became the highest grossing film of 1997. I'm like, wait, do I have the like? What is this? And then I looked and I actually somehow had the Armageddon page open. So Armageddon was the highest grossing film of 1997.
Bored.
But George of the Jungle comes out July 16th of 1997. I am a wee tyke at this point. It opens number 2 behind Men in Black.
That's a hard position.
It's hard to beat Men in Black.
Yeah.
Men in Black was like the breakout hit of the summer. George, don't discredit him though. He makes good money. George of the Jungle makes $174.4 million off a $55 million budget. For the 90s, that's a very healthy little profit.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Disney's looking for in a movie like this. Makes a tidy little profit like that. They're not trying to do their movies now where it's like it has to make $1 billion or it's a flop. Which is exactly what happens with movies like Black Adam, where it makes good money but makes no money and is seen as a flop. But it comes out, big financial success, moderate critical success. Roger Ebert's a big fan of it. It gets mostly like mid-level reviews. People like, your kids are going to love it. Your mileage may vary. But I think that's, we're seeing a resurgence in love for this movie now.
Well, that was also a time where I feel like, I don't know, when I see things that are marketed to like kids now, it's like they've dumbed it all down. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we came up at a time where things were not dumbed down for us.
Yes.
So that like there are nuances that your parents could enjoy, but also when you watched it later on, you were like, I didn't catch
never
these
caught
like
that as a kid.
15 sexual jokes.
Yeah. And I agree with that. Like, it's very much, there was a better breed of kids movie in the day. Kids movies like this were designed to be enjoyed by the whole... It's a family movie. It's designed to be enjoyed by the whole family.
Yeah.
Sir, you're looking like you want to say something.
No, I mean, I'm just looking at the trivia page, seeing if there's anything interesting to tell to add to the post text of the movie. The only thing I can really think of is that Brendan Fraser's personal trainer evidently sued Fraser because Fraser didn't like give him any credit.
In the end credits.
In the end credits, he did not win the case.
Yeah.
So
you're being paid to do the thing. You did it.
Yeah. So
Fraser, this movie, huge for him. It's his first major box office success. And off of his performance in this, he gets both Blast from the Past and The Mummy, as well as Dudley Do-Right, which are his next 3 big movies.
Yeah.
So this is the movie that catapults him into superstardom.
Yeah. And
Kids love him. Adults are like, he's great in that movie. He starts getting, successful roles after the point. So this is really the inception point for the Brendan Fraser that we know and love now.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying, though, that it's like it sort of catapults him into his like comedic action star role stardom, and we're gonna lose a little bit of like his roots from like the dramatic thespian roles that he took.
We're gonna have some of it.
Some.
Like our next episode, well, not our next, the next movie we cover will be Gods and Monsters.
Yes.
Which is a drama. And he does a fair bit of dramas, but in terms of his generally accepted, like, what people know him for, it's all like action comedies from here on out.
Yeah.
Action comedies, romantic comedies. That's his bread and butter from here on out.
Yeah. And whether that's a good thing or bad thing, because I will say, like, from the movies we've seen with Fraser, dramatically speaking, he's a great dramatic role. And he's about to prove it again in The Whale.
Yeah. He'll probably get an Oscar nomination. We don't know yet.
Probably.
He will, yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. But this movie does get a sequel. And we do have to talk about that really quick.
Yeah.
George of the Jungle 2, which is released direct-to-video, as all Disney sequels are at this time. Came out in 2003. Brendan is offered the role to reprise, or offered to reprise his role. He turns it down because he did not want to have to do that to his body again, and also they did not offer him enough money.
Good for him.
Only 2 actors returned for that movie. Can anyone guess who?
The Poachers.
Nope.
Lyle,
Yes.
Ooh.
and John Cleese.
Yes.
Whoa.
It's Thomas Hayden. You knew that, didn't you?
No.
It's Thomas Hayden
Complete
Church
guess.
and John Cleese as Ape. Thomas Hayden Church gets top billing in the sequel for his reprisal as Lyle Vander Groot. Ursula is recast with Julia Benz. Christopher Showerman plays George. But John Cleese does return as Ape. We just need to...
Again, a great paycheck.
He
Because he doesn't have to be present.
Yeah, he just shows up and he's just like, oh, I'm
Does
an
like
ape,
some-
and I... and then he goes home.
So
I never saw the second one.
And you never will.
I don't want to. Like, the appeal is gone.
Yes, when you lose the Brendan of it all. But yeah, that's generally the extent of George of the Jungle post-text I want to talk about. Makes a lot of money, gets decent reviews, and catapults our boy into the next stage of his career.
yeah.
So-
Adam.
Yeah, okay. I can pull some bullshit out of my ass.
Adam has looked stressed in the corner.
Yeah,
He's been
okay.
silent for like 20 minutes, and I look over and it looks like he's like really in thought.
Water
yeah.
gone.
Yeah, water
Give
is
the people
gone.
what they want.
Yeah, I could use some more water. But okay, so Jeff mentioned Nietzsche, so I'm just gonna go off of that.
Oh God.
Yeah, Friedrich Nietzsche died August 25th, 1900. I was born August 25th, 1994. So there's some parallels there. Anyway, yes, his magnum opus, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, or Also Sprach Zarathustra in German. I'm just buying time here. Yes, about a man named Zarathustra who
There's better than a man named George.
lives in isolation. Talks to his serpent and his eagle, and then goes out into civilization, and does some shit there. Doesn't quite fit in. Everyone's.
Is he about to nail this? Is he about to
What?
pull it off?
He's about to pull it off.
Then he returns to the wilderness, having decided there's nothing in civilization for him, and starts basically, I don't know, he evolves into the next form of man, but starting his own kingdom, something there, some parallels.
I think there's something to be said about the next evolved.
That is
Version of
basically just the plot of George of the Jungle.
There you
So you just
go.
got man goes to civilization, decides there's nothing for him there, goes back.
So what you were saying before about it being highbrow, it's real.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and there's also a lot about like Zarathustra has no culture. He wants everyone to abandon culture. He doesn't. He has no. Like the part with George, and he doesn't understand gender roles. Where's the dress? That's Zarathustra. He wants everyone to abandon their old ideas and just start fresh, start new. And I think George is like that. He's a modern Zarathustra.
Adam Campbell, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we have him on. This is why we have Adam Campbell on our show.
It's funny because with Phenomenon, he had like an actual like thought that he like wanted to come on the show to talk about, and since then we have dragged him here to bring up these thoughts about things he did not have these ideas about.
Yeah.
Like your explanation on Life on the Line just was amazing.
What did I say about that?
I know you. I
Blacked
called you
out.
while you were in. I called you while you were in a grocery store and put you live on air.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't remember what I said at all.
To be honest, I don't really remember what you said. A lot of things were said on the Life on the Line episode.
What is going on? What's happening?
Yeah. I think we should wrap this up, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to that point.
Well, Adam, any final thoughts aside from Zarathustra?
I was just thinking, if the poachers had gotten John Cleese, they probably would have just sold him to like a zoo or something, and I think he would have wound up in Las Vegas doing exactly what he did.
He just did it his way.
Yeah, he did it his way.
It would
Okay.
have been King Kong style.
On
Yes.
his own terms.
The eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah. Anna, you got any final thoughts?
Just all. He's so hot.
Yeah, let's just all say he's like
He's
hot as
just
shit.
so
in this
hot.
He's
Like,
just really hot.
but
in
it
this
also
movie.
breaks my heart, like knowing what I know about how what he had to endure, then I'm like, ugh, am I just like a part of the problem? Where I'm just like hot.
No, I think like he went through all that, and he like certainly would wish that no one else would have to go through that. Mm-hmm. But he went through it, and we should at least like appreciate
his hotness.
What he did. I'm sure he'd be even more pissed if we're all like, he looks fine.
He'd be like,
like if he suffered for it, he probably wants us to be like, yeah, it was pretty hot in that movie. You gotta admit.
Very hot and steamy.
Yeah, you're a grade A smoke show in that movie.
Number 1 hair.
But he was hot for a lot of reasons. I want him to know that. I mean, obviously his physique and his hair, fantastic. But it was like, no, he was like sensitive and like genuine. That was hot.
Yeah. Very caring.
Being sincere is hot nowadays.
Yeah.
Nowadays. 1997?
Yeah, you can get
questionable.
Look at Lyle.
Lyle, crocodile.
Nice. All right.
Stuart, any thoughts?
No. I think I've said everything I could say about
everything
it.
you want to say about George of the Jungle?
Yeah.
Right.
Good.
I think that's about all I have to say as well. In that case, thank you, folks, for listening to this episode of Travolting Presents The Fraser's Edge. As a reminder, we I'm saying the wrong thing.
We're on Apple Podcasts.
Wait, no. I want to make sure to tune in next week for our 100th episode spectacular.
Oh yeah.
That's right, folks. This is the 99th episode of Travolting. Next week we're celebrating our 100th episode with a special thing that we've said a long time we wouldn't do. We're going to do a commentary track for the first episode of Welcome Back, Kotter, a show we said we will never cover, a show we will cover one time and then never touch again. So tune in next week for our commentary track on Welcome Back, Kotter, celebrating 100 episodes of Travolting. And then the week after that, we'll get back into the Fraser's Edge with our episode on Gods and Monsters, joined by Dave Manzolillo. So thank you all for listening. And as a reminder, we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Come on to our Reddit, r/Travolting. Email us anything at travoltingpodcast@gmail.com. Find us at TravoltingPod on Twitter or Instagram. Find me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney.
You can find me on Instagram at Stuart95.
And anything you want to plug?
No.
Adam, anything you want to plug?
No.
Okay.
Not plugged. We're unplugged.
Yes.
Special thanks, as always, to Rebecca Johnson for our graphic design and Michael Van Bodegum Smith for the theme music that is now taking you out. Have a great rest of your week, folks, and see you for Gods and Monsters and Welcome Back, Kotter. Oh!
Watch out for that tree. Watch out for that bang. Ooh, tree. George of the jungle. Watch out for that tree.